show must go
Yes.
on. Do you? Well, this is not a great question, but like, do you recall any particular humorous or unusual event?
Oh gosh. Yes, I do remember one. And this was earlier in my career when I was at Westover in the 50s. There had been, there's two little stories to this. One of them is we had, we were one of the first KC-135 refueling.
And yeah, you were talking about the
A special event.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, as I said, it was earlier than in the 50s, the late 50s, that we had a new squadron of KC-135s, and they were doing a lot of testing of them, of distance that they would fly, loads that they would put on the aircraft, and so forth. And we had this crew of, let's see, there was five KC-135s that were flying these tests, and one of them was to fly over to England and back, and fly over to England, and there was a whole bunch of tests. But anyways, one of the aircraft that was flying over there was loaded with the most fuel ever put on board with KC-135. And the weather had changed from the time that they did the briefing of the aircraft. It had rained, which made the air heavier. So what happened was that the aircraft took off, and it was taking off. It got up to a few hundred feet and stayed there and couldn't go any higher, and went off the end of the runway across the Massachusetts Turnpike, turned over on its back and exploded. So a couple days after that, I had to go out to the site and go through the site and pick out all of the items in the aircraft that pertained to my career field, which was pressurization, air conditioning, and so forth. And it wasn't a great time, I tell you. They had already removed all of the bodies, which there was quite a few. It was just what was left was the parts of the aircraft. So I had to do that. So then, a few weeks later, I was asked to go on a trip to Alaska on a KC-135, and we were meeting John Foster Dulles. He had one of our aircraft, and he was coming back from the trip when the Pope had passed away. So we were checking on his aircraft up there in Alaska. So when we got up there, I come to find out that our KC-135 that we took off with had the same amount of fuel that the one that crashed did, but we didn't have the problem. You know, the problem was blamed on flaps not being at the right setting. So anyways, when we got up to Alaska, we were doing some maintenance and so forth, and I said to somebody, I says, do you know where the nearest restroom is? And he says, in the hangar, over there. So I said, okay. So I went in the hangar, walked in there, and I was looking for the restroom, I couldn't find it. So I opened this door up, and I opened the door up, it was into a hangar. And I was looking up at a 6'6", 250, 300-pound air policeman.
Huh.
And he looked at me and he says, can I help you? And I said, yes, I'm looking for the restroom. Well, he told me where it was, but behind him, now you remember this is the 50s, behind him was a U-2, which was classified secret. People didn't know it was around. It's the same type of aircraft that was flown over Russia that crashed with Gary Powers. Well, after I went to the restroom, and the following day when we got up, the hangar door opened up and the U-2 took off.
Wow.
But that aircraft was not very well known by people. It was very classified. But anyways, it was a time of where I could have been thrown in jail because I was getting into a classified program. But anyway, it didn't happen. But then the funny thing was that later on, in the early '60s, when I got stationed at Davis-Monthan, guess what was stationed at Davis-Monthan? I was in the same squadron I was in, or wing, U-2s. And I got to work on a couple of them. So it was, it really is neat how things turn around, and come back at you. I really enjoyed that.
Alright, let's see. Do you remember any fellow soldiers or officers? So, do you remember any officers or fellow soldiers?
Well, yeah, I remember a few that I had worked with, and we've kept in contact a little here and there. It all depends on, you know, as years go on, we all go our own ways. But yeah, there's a few around. I know of one in particular that I didn't know at the time I was in Vietnam, but I found out later on when I moved here that a doctor that I go to right now was in the same squadron I was in at the same time in Benoit. And I didn't know that until I met him here as a doctor, and then we got communicating and telling stories and so forth. And then,
Wow, small.
yeah.
Oh, wow. So, when did you end your service? What did you do after your service?
Okay, I retired in July of 1975.
Mm-hmm.
20 years, 20 years and 13 days in the service, and really enjoyed it. It was well worth the benefits that you get out of it after being in for 20 years. And the government helps the states with
Right.
medical benefits and so forth, and of course a retirement, which isn't very much, but compared to what a lot of people make today,
Right.
we get 50% of what we were making at that time of 75, which wasn't very much. And then it was a time of where people were struggling, but yet you had to keep focused forward on your life. You have a family to take care of, and it worked out good. I ended up, after getting out of the service, my last 7.5 years in the Air Force, I was working at Ryan Aeronautical, which is an aircraft company that built the Spirit of St. Louis back in the 20s. And they were making the drones that we were flying in Vietnam. So I stayed there and worked with them until September of 1999. Very good career with them.
Just a little bit after I was born.
Oh, yeah.
August 99.
Oh,
So, yeah. Oh, we're almost done. So you said you kept in touch for a while with some of your friends.
right, right.
In the military, but do you still continue your? Do you have any relationships now?
Only
with
by
them?
emails at this point.
Uh-huh.
The squadron that we were in at Davis-Monthan, called the 100th EMMS, it had one of the fellas started up a website, and there was all kinds of pictures and stories about all the different guys that was in it through the years. Of course, I was only with him for 3.5 years, but
Yeah.
then my time at Tucson, or not Tucson, excuse me, my time in San Diego, I was working with them on the same program, so I got to meet a lot of them. But they were setting up this site, and it's really nice to be able to relate back to some of the stories, and you could send in stories to them or pictures, and so you kind of kept in touch, but informally, with these other fellows, and it's amazing what comes out of it.
Right.
You know.
So, did your experience influence your thinking about war, or just in general about military?
Well, to me, you don't think about war so much. It happens, and you just prepare yourself and do the best you can for what you need to be doing. And that way, because you're helping others, you're behind somebody, and you're holding their back up. You're backing this one up. It's just like a firefighter.
Yeah.
You can't do the job by yourself. You got to have somebody helping you, and that's the way it was then. You helping each other all the time, working together to get the mission done.
Good. Do you want to add something or something that you didn't say but you want to say?
Well, one of the things that I'm in the middle of now is every Wednesday I go to Castle Air Museum, and we have over 60 aircraft on display. And I work in the Castle Air Museum Restoration, and I work in a hangar where we bring in aircraft and we restore them to not to fly, but to be put on display for the public, which helps to tell a story to the people today
Right.
and to the kids today. This airplane flew in the 20s or the 40s or the 30s or whatever, or this flew yesterday or something like that. We got here. We have an Air Force One out there. We have a MiG-17, so we have foreign aircraft. We have a Saab, which is coming from Sweden. We have a MiG-21 and a MiG-17, both of those. We're working on them. We bring them in the hangar and we restore them. And you get to meet some guys that you may have been stationed with before or been in the same fields, and you work together. And it's just rewarding to be using some of the talents that you had in the military, doing it today. And that was, well, let's see, 75, 85, 95, 40, 50 years ago that you were doing, that you're doing today again, and it brings back memories, and you have a lot of fun doing it. And I think that's a...
So you're in kind of like organization of like a veteran organization, or it's
Yes,
just...
yes, I am a member of the VFW, Veterans of Foreign Wars. And we have a post here in